Good evening. Welcome to the June 26, 2025 meeting of the Minnetonka Planning Commission. The Commission generally meets twice a month on a Thursday. The schedule and tentative meeting agendas can be obtained by calling the Planning Division or by checking the city website at minnetonkamn.gov. The Commission holds public hearings on land use applications for which the city notifies property owners within at least 400 feet of the site and posts plans and information on the website. For some applications, the city also places signs on the properties and notices in the Sun-Sailor newspaper. The Commission makes recommendations to the City Council on rezonings, subdivisions, conditional use permits, and amendments to the city's comprehensive guide plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations. We make final decisions on site plans, signage requests, variance requests, and expansion permits, unless those requests are part of an application that must be heard by the City Council. In that case, the Commission makes a recommendation to the Council for decision. Anyone dissatisfied with a final Planning Commission decision may appeal to the City Council by submitting a written request to City staff within 10 days of this meeting. From a broader standpoint, the city's comprehensive guide plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations are the city's best efforts to codify a balance between individual rights and community responsibilities. Individual rights are easy to understand. Community responsibilities are more subtle, but the idea is that we, as members of the community, agree to limit our individual rights for the common good of the group. The Planning Division, the Planning Commission, and the City Council are charged with managing this sometimes difficult balancing act. We ask you to keep this broader perspective in mind as we review tonight's applications. Again, welcome. Staff, please call roll.
Minion.
Here.
Waterman.
Here.
Banks is absent. Brink.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Henry.
Here.
Chair Maxwell.
Here, there are 6 of us seated tonight. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And Ms. Thomas, I believe there's a change memo for tonight.
Correct, Chair Maxwell. There is a change memo this evening for items 8B, which is 5501 Nantucket Place, and 8C, 14705 Glendale Road. The change memo consists of comments that the city staff has received via email or via our Minnetonka Matters portal for those applications.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda considering the change memo?
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Motion Henry, second Minion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Next is the approval of the minutes from the June 5th, 2025 meeting. Commissioners, anybody have any changes? No? All right, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Motion Waterman,
I'll second.
second Minion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, we have report from staff.
Thank you again, Chair. Actually, I have several items to report on this evening. First is with regards to a project, the Polk residence on Larchwood Road. We sent out notices several weeks ago that that item would be on this evening's agenda, but it did not make it onto the agenda. We're dealing with some plan changes. We failed to send out postponement notices by postcard. We did update the website and sent out an email blast to those subscribers. But if anyone is here for the Polk residence on Larchwood, I apologize. That will not be on this evening's agenda. We will send notices in the future. Second is the council update. The council considered 3 items on their last meeting that the Planning Commission had made recommendations on. First was the Tammy addition, a 2-lot subdivision on Robinwood Road, Hidden Valley Road addition, again 2-lot subdivision on Hidden Valley Road, and the interim use ordinance. All were approved by the council per the Planning Commission's recommendation. Want to give you an update on the zoning ordinance work. We haven't done an update for a while. Those of you that are on the work group did get this email, but I'll provide it for the rest of the group. So a couple of things going on with that. First is we have 2 surveys that are happening right now. A visual preference survey, which is again on Minnetonka Matters, under the zoning ordinance. I encourage everyone who's here this evening, planning commissioners included, to go and take that survey. What a visual survey is, it's a series of diagrams or photographs and engaging responses to different setback requirements, potentially from front property lines, different types of housing, whether it's duplexes, triplexes, quads, small apartment buildings, and we have photos of those types of units that are already in the city of Minnetonka. So I encourage you to do that. That's open to anyone. Second, we'll be conducting a phone survey with Morris Leatherman. They're the company that has, for well over a decade, conducted our annual community-wide survey with all sorts of questions about all sorts of things. But this survey will be specific to zoning ordinance work and the zoning ordinance update. It will be administered to about 250 to 300 folks, aimed at getting that statistically significant response. Again, similar questions about housing type, bikeable and walkable access to commercial areas, other amenities, lot sizes, all sorts of things that would be in the zoning ordinance. So that will be happening in the next few weeks. Summerfest is coming. We're going to have the zoning zone tent at Summerfest. You can stop by, take that visual preference survey. Planning staff will be there. You can ask all things related to zoning. We are in the more near the kids area, so hopefully will be lots of fun. And then finally, the calibration work with the city's consultant and planning staff is nearing completion. Calibration is really looking at zoning districts and uses in those zoning districts, and what we have currently, what we might want to have in the future. When that work is done, we'll be going back to our community work group and our staff work group, and I'll have another update at that time. But so even though you haven't seen it, there's a lot happening with the zoning update. I'm almost done. On your calendars, you should put Thursday, July 31st for the annual Planning Commission City Council EDAC tour. We've moved it up a month, hoping to get a little more participation in there. You should have gotten a save the date, and we'll get an email invite, a calendar invite soon if you haven't already. We plan to meet at Ridgedale Commons Park at 5 p.m., have a meal at that time, and then we'll be actually traveling more in the northwest corner of town, but seeing a variety of things. Amira Villa townhomes, which are under construction, some naturally occurring affordable rental, what I used to call the Gates of Carlson apartment complex there, but is now called Arrive. And we'll be visiting Blue Horizon Energy, which is also located in that general area. They are a solar energy business catering to businesses and institutional uses, but headquartered here in Minnetonka. So that's what we have on the schedule as of right now. That's subject to change, certainly, but some interesting places. And then last but not least, a final plug for our Home Energy Squad visits. The free portion of that, having someone come out and do an energy audit on your home, that will expire on June 30th. So there's still a little bit of time to sign up for those. The audits will always be available. It's just that the city's covering of those costs will end at the end of June. And then finally, your next meeting is scheduled for July the 10th. So thank you for indulging me on that longer than typical report. I would turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. The next item on our agenda is a report from planning commissioners. Commissioner Henry, you got something to report?
Oh, thank you. Nothing to report. I'd just like to follow up with Susan Thomas' rather lengthy city briefing for
Sure,
us. So,
you may do it.
thank you. One of the questions is the city was providing free energy audits from the Home Energy Squad. It's ending end of June. Do you know any statistics on the number of free audits that we had budgeted for? And did a lot of the citizens of the city take advantage of that free audit?
Chair Maxwell and Commissioner Henry, these numbers may be a little bit off. We have a lot left to give, but we did give about 300 this year, which is significantly more than we've had in the past.
I'd like to put a plug in there too. We're trying to reduce our carbon footprint, and as being on the Sustainability Commission, if we all do our part, we can add up to a larger reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Plus, it saves you money. We had it done, and we found a lot of things that could be improved on our house, so it made a difference.
Anything else to report from commissioners? No? All right, let's move to item 7, which is the consent agenda. The city staff places items that are considered routine on the consent agenda, so no staff presentations or applicant presentations will be made. We will hold a public hearing and then approve all items on the agenda with one motion, subject to the staff conditions of approval. So before voting, I'll open the public hearing. I'll announce we have one item, so I'll announce the item. If anyone wishes to have a separate discussion on that item, we can do so. We will remove it and have a discussion on it and then vote on the remaining items. So I will now open the public hearing. And the first item on the consent agenda is item 7A, a request to rescind the Ridge Square North sign plan at 12977 Ridgedale Drive. Does any commissioner wish to remove this item from the consent agenda? Any member of the public wish to remove this? All right, as no one wishes to speak, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda? Yes, Commissioner Waterman.
Chair, may I just add a comment on this one? Not looking to pull it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So, somewhat related to this, I happen to receive unsolicited feedback on Ridge Square South and the aesthetic. I would just encourage the applicant to work with the city on the aesthetic. People I've talked to generally don't like what was done with the South project, and actually like the original look. So just might be worthwhile kind of talking with the city. It's harder to read the signs actually, and the aesthetic, like I said, isn't really that great. It's funny that it has come up after they did the construction. So I just want to throw that in there for the record, but I'm not recommending we pull this and have further discussion on the sign plan.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion?
I'll also make the motion since I interrupted the flow there.
Okay, motion Waterman. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second, Henry. Staff, please poll the commission.
Minion,
Aye.
Waterman,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Maxwell.
Yes. This item is a final decision subject to appeal. If anyone would like to appeal the decision, you must provide written notification to the staff within 10 days of this meeting. All right, next on the agenda is the non-consent agenda. Before we begin consideration of these items, I'd like to review the steps in the process and for the public hearing that will be followed for each proposal. So first, the item will be announced and the staff will give a report on that item. Next, the commission will ask questions of the staff. Then the applicant will be invited forward to make a presentation or to offer any comments. Commissioners may then ask questions of the applicant at that time. When that is finished, the public hearing will be opened and anyone who would like to speak will have an opportunity to comment on the proposal. If you wish to speak, come to the podium, state your name and your address for the record. We ask that you keep your comments brief. Try not to repeat points already made. Direct your questions or comments to the commission. If you have any questions for staff or for the applicant, I will get those answered after the public hearing has been closed. Once everyone has spoken, we may allow speakers to return for additional comments if there are more. All right, with that, the first item on tonight's non-consent agenda is item 8A, amendment to the Bonaventure Shopping Center sign plan as it pertains to 1641 Plymouth Road. Staff, please make your presentation.
Chair and, I have a very finicky mouse here. Let's see if I can get it going the right way. Okay, thank you. Bonaventure Shopping Center, you may not have known before the staff report was built back in the 1970s as a kind of an interior facing mall, and over the last several decades it has become an exterior facing mall. But the sign plan approved at the same time as the building construction originally in the 1970s. It's been amended over the years such that right now the sign plan generally allows for larger tenants to have 2 wall signs, one on the facade where their door is, and then typically one on the east facade that would face Ridgedale Center. Smaller tenants are allowed just 1 sign on their actual entry facade. As the Commission is likely aware, Wineside, a restaurant that had been located in the southeast corner of the building, has closed. That restaurant space did have a sign on the south facade of the building. I believe it's still up there as of last week. Will be coming down, as the space is currently undergoing a remodel set to open in the upcoming months as Forked. Bob Tinsley, representing Forked, has requested an amendment to the sign plan to install a blade sign on the southeast side of the building, rather than that just sign facing southward. Mr. Tinsley has owned and operated and consulted on many restaurants in the metro area over the years: Champs Sports Cafe, Zalo, and Baccio, just to name a few here. Staff supports the use of a blade sign for 3 reasons that were outlined in the report. First, in our opinion, the blade sign has really been attractively designed, enhancing the aesthetics of the building itself. It would creatively provide visibility from both the south and the east. And if this property were not governed by a sign plan, this blade sign would in fact be allowed just under the sign ordinance. So for those 3 reasons, we are recommending amendment of the sign plan for Bonaventure, specifically as it pertains to this tenant space. So with that, I would turn it back to the chair and commission.
Thanks, Ms. Thomas. Does anybody on the commission have questions for staff? I don't see any. So at this point, the applicant may come forward and give a presentation if you like.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, is there anything you'd like to add?
Bob Tinsley. We're just kind of in our last months getting ready for this, and we've kind of gone back and forth, and it was really with a lot of help from Julie and Susan as far as figuring out how to work this out so that we could have visibility there. And I think we came up with a great option. So I just want to thank them for their help.
Thanks, Mr. Tinsley. Would you just add your business address for the record, please?
1641 Plymouth Road.
Thank you. Does anybody on the commission have questions for the applicant? No? All right, so at this point, I will open the public hearing. If you'd like to speak, come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and then direct your questions to me and I can get them answered for you. Does anybody like to come forward on this item? I don't see anybody, so I will close the public hearing. And then I'll bring it back to the commission for any questions or comments. Commissioner Henry.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with the city's assessment of this one. I think it's really attractive, and for the other reasons I mentioned, it has south and eastern facing visibility, and that it is allowed under the sign ordinance, or it would have been if this wasn't governed, if the Bonaventure wasn't governed under the current sign plan. Just one question for city staff. We sometimes talk about revising the sign plans or sign ordinances. Has there been any thought to revising this one or removing it so this is falling under the city's general city sign ordinance?
Chair Maxwell and Commissioner Henry, this particular building may be difficult to rescind the plan on in that the signage on this property, but for Forked, really exceeds what would be allowed under the sign ordinance. Typically, a property owner would come to us when they realize that their sign plan is not allowing what the ordinance would allow. In this case, I think that the signs that are there would be negatively impacted by rescinding the sign plan.
Very insightful, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Yeah. Commissioner Henry.
Thank you. Since I'm still here, I think it's worthwhile, so I'll be in favor of this one.
All right, I'm seeing a lot of nodding, not a lot of comments. So I think we're ready for a motion to, a motion to adopt the resolution approving the amendment to the Bonaventure Shopping Center sign plan as it pertains to 1641 Plymouth Road.
I'd like to make the motion.
Motion Henry, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second Waterman. Staff, please poll the commission.
Minion?
Yes.
Waterman?
Yes.
Brink?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Chair Maxwell.
Yes. Motion carried. And again, this is a final decision subject to appeal. Good luck with your project. All right, next item on the agenda is item 8B, a front yard setback variance for a pool house at 5501 Nantucket Place. Staff, please make your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Maxwell and members of the Commission. Before you this evening is an application for a variance at 5501 Nantucket Place. The subject property is located at the end of the cul-de-sac on the road there. It's located just south of Excelsior Boulevard and just east of Purgatory Park. The applicant is requesting a variance to the front yard setback for the construction of a proposed 14 by 14 pool house, which is highlighted in red on the screen before you. City code standards require a 35-foot front setback for accessory structures. However, the applicant is proposing the pool house to be located 24.5 feet from the front property line and 12 feet from the back of the curb. And then the next couple of slides on the screen before you are just some images that were provided by the applicant and their contractors. So this one is an aerial view which shows the location of the existing pool and pool apron. And then here we have some elevations of the proposed pool house. And then here's just some different views so you can see it from the cul-de-sac, from the house itself, and then also from Purgatory Park. And then lastly, just some images on site that you can see there, where the proposed pool house will go. There's looking out from the pool to the cul-de-sac, and then the next pictures are looking from the cul-de-sac towards the house. So just going back to this, I want to talk to the variance review by staff. So when staff reviews a variance application, the main question we ask is if there's a practical difficulty on site. And in determining that, there's 3 questions that we ask. So is the use reasonable? Are there unique circumstances not caused by the property owner? And will the variance adversely affect the character of the neighborhood? So for a variance to be granted, all 3 of those criteria must be met. So upon review, we determined that this case does not meet all the criteria. More specifically, it's not reasonable because it's inconsistent with the intent of the ordinance. There are no unique circumstances to the property, as the yard could accommodate for the proposed pool house in a separate location. And then lastly, that it would alter the character of the neighborhood by our standard in the code, as it would impact the existing building lines and the separation between structures and the roadway. So I can certainly understand where they're coming from and wanting to have a pool house and have some shade on these super hot summer days that we've been having lately. But from a staff perspective, I have to apply the code as it's written. And so therefore, we're recommending denial of the request. However, a revision to the location of the pool house, should it meet all the required setback standards, could be approved by staff if we have some kind of revised plan there. So with that, I just wanted to show one more aerial view so that you guys can see the site, from top down. And the recommendation is on the screen before you. Staff is again available for any questions that you have. The applicant is also in attendance if you have any specific site questions.
Thanks, Ms. Rooney. Anybody on the commission have questions for staff? Nobody. All right. I have one, just a sort of a wording question. The staff used the term pool house. The applicant used the term gazebo. Are those two interchangeable in terms of code, or is one regulated differently than the other?
They would not be regulated differently. Maybe the Phillips can speak to how it's different in what they see in the building plans, but regardless of how it's used in the staff report, we'd still enforce it by the same setbacks as in code. Yep.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hanson, you have a question?
Yeah, maybe. Thanks, Chair. When we say neighborhood character, I think this house is in it's in a cul-de-sac. So is it the 400 feet radius, or is it like the 3 or 4 houses in the cul-de-sac? What defines the neighborhood in this instance? That's okay if we can phone a friend too.
I might phone a friend for Susan.
Chair Maxwell and Commissioner Hanson, neighborhood character, just as you said, it's nebulous. And so in this case, we would have looked at Nantucket Place. That really it's a one road. It comes in, there's not a lot else surrounding it. So we would define that in this case as the neighborhood, again, from our perspective.
Thanks.
Other questions for staff? Commissioner Waterman.
Thanks. If this were some sort of other type of structure, it looks like this is going to be constructed and built. I've seen other types of maybe prefabricated gazebos that, maybe I suppose are permanent. Does that change anything, or just by virtue of it being an accessory structure that's installed, that has the same impact?
It would have the same impact. You're correct.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Henry.
Staff, in the applicant's application, they wrote a couple of times about that the neighborhood is adjacent to a park. And does the city have any differing criteria with front yard setbacks that are in a cul-de-sac or adjacent to public lands like this, or are they subject to the same front and side yard setbacks that all other houses in other neighborhoods are subject to?
Yep. Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but from how I've been reading it lately, there is no difference between a house neighboring another house or a house neighboring a park. It's all applied the same, so it would still have to require with our 35-foot setback.
And I would just add to what Ms. Rooney said, and she's absolutely correct. We don't have a variety of different setbacks depending on what you're adjacent to when you're in a property that's zoned R1 residential. That is something that you as a commission can take into consideration. That's why they're asking for a variance this evening, to ask for a deviation from those very specific setbacks that we have called out.
Thanks for the update.
Anyone else? All right, at this point, I'll invite the applicant forward to add any comments or to answer any questions that the commission has. Please state your name and your address for the record when you get up here.
I'm Dan Philp, 5501 Nantucket.
And I'm Katrina Philp, same address.
Perfect. Is it okay if I address staff just for a second?
You,
It's
yeah,
a very positive, it's a compliment.
sure, yeah.
Riley, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with somebody that was more pleasant and professional, and then, you know, with you on the opposite side of the issue, effectively. So it was, your staff is very professional, and it's been a pleasure. It hasn't been difficult, you know, so we understand. So I guess to start, Katrina and I lived in Minneapolis for many years. We got married. And when we were looking for a place to move, we selected our current location after taking a stroll around Purgatory Park. We loved backing up to the park. We have a lot of strong feelings about the park. But when we moved here, I think what we took for granted, we're both from very small communities. I grew up in Waconia when it was 2,500 people, and I went to school with mostly farmers. It's way different today. She grew up in
Was a farmer?
Yeah, she was a farmer. She grew up in a very small community as well. So I think what we took for granted is what it takes to build community when we moved here. So we've done a lot of investment in our house, primarily with the intent with our discussions, where are we going to, you know, invest in our property. They've been to, you know, we wanted to put on a front porch because we wanted to, you know, make reasons to interact with our neighbors. We wanted to put in a pool because we wanted to give the kids in the neighborhood a reason to come and visit our children. We have 3. One is a kindergartner she will be a kindergartner at Scenic Heights. Our other's going to enter 3rd grade at Scenic Heights, and our 2-year-old Jack will hopefully go there as well. They would be here today, but they decided to play with their neighbors and save worms from the from the recent rainfall. So we're asking for this for a couple of reasons. It was always our intent to put something here. Granted, in our application, it was a little bit odd. We actually thought it was approved at the time. But the reason we selected this location is because we have 3 kids. The cul-de-sac becomes a gathering place for the children of the neighborhood. It's probably the most colorful cul-de-sac in all of Minnetonka half the time because they draw it with chalk there all the time. But this allows us to both keep an eye on the pool and the cul-de-sac at the same time because we have a 2-year-old and all the other kids that run around the neighborhood. So we kind of end up being the location for people to gather, which is our intent, to be that location. And I don't know, I guess you could talk about the letters, and, you know, we weren't sure, you know, it's hard to sort of quantify the community that you've helped cultivate and are now a part of. But we were very, you know, humbled and excited when our neighbors all kind of came out and came to bat for us. So you can talk about that a little bit, I guess. Go.
So we didn't ask our neighbors we didn't go out and say, hey, can you help us
We're not
with
very good at
this?
soliciting things.
They came to us when they got the letters in the mail and said, we support you. Is there anything we can do? And the people who live across the cul-de-sac, Paul and Pamela, they said we'd show up, but we have our 10-year-old granddaughter's birthday party, so we'll give you a letter. And so their letter is included in there. Our next door neighbors, Pete and Donna, who are right next to us, so they're, I guess, the 2 closest. They said, "What if there's something we can do, please let us know." And they also provided a letter, as did 2 other people on the street, and one of our neighbors is here today as well. So we feel very special to have the community around us and to have that support from them. I think the other thing, we've looked at putting it in other places on our yard, and it's the grade on the yard makes it hard to build. Like on the other side, for example, it would be disruptive to our neighbors and disruptive to our property to have to build that up in order to put a structure there. So in addition to the fact that it's a safety issue for us to be able to watch our kids in both spots where they like to play, it's also much more difficult and requires more investment and would be disruptive to the neighborhood to put it in another, like on the other side, for example.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I would say is I know that front yards are defined by kind of what meets the street. For all practical purposes, we've always thought of our house as that's kind of the backyard backing up to the park. Our front entrance is on the driveway side of the building. So when you actually pull up to the property, like we can, for our practical use of the property, that's kind of our front yard, and then kind of our backyard. It's kind of an odd lot being at the end of the cul-de-sac. So. We also have the letters. We weren't sure if they were all passed out or not. We have letters for everybody. Okay. So.
We have those included in our change memo.
Okay,
Wonderful.
great.
I wasn't sure what a change memo was until you, when you mentioned it.
Okay. Thank you for considering.
Yeah,
and thanks
thanks a
for
lot.
what you do for the city of Minnetonka.
Yeah, we appreciate
It's a great place to live.
it. Do you have any questions, or do we?
Yeah, we may have questions. Anybody on the commission have questions for the applicant? Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah. As you guys have worked with the city, I'm sure you guys have been equally grateful back. What are, just looking at the picture, the overhead picture of your house, am I thinking about this right, that to the upper right of the house is where the alternate site is being talked about? Like, I get where you guys want it, but
I don't know
I
that-
don't think I'm understanding like the grading work comment.
Oh, sure.
So I just want to, like, if you, let's say we had to build it somewhere else.
Sure.
Where's that grading site? I'm not asking you to commit to anything. I'm
Yeah.
just
Sure.
trying to follow what
Basically,
you're saying.
think about where the pool starts. It basically goes, there's steps down behind it. That's just a very steep
So,
grade.
yeah, right there. Those are steps that go down.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Gotcha. I thought those were steps that were coming down from the pool, but that's where I was wrong. So, makes sense.
Well, they're coming down from the pool. That's correct. Yep.
Commissioner Waterman.
Thanks. In our packet, the letter that you wrote in the city, it mentioned that there was an error in the initial permit application. Can you
Yeah.
provide any color on that?
So we actually brought the original site plan. So when we put together the site plan, we hire contractors, we work with professionals, because we don't know what we're doing, right? And so they submitted a permit on our behalf, and in the design work, the area that's located on you must want to pass these out. Is it okay if we approach and pass these out?
Well,
You probably
we can
have
show
the
on
original,
here.
yeah.
You can show it on here.
In that original plan, there was basically a gazebo
That's
in
marked
that
on the
spot.
original
Yeah.
plan.
So that was in our original plan. It says gazebo in the proposal of 256 square feet. So we thought at least that area was approved. So then we went ahead and built, spent our budget to build everything with that in mind. So that was our original intent. So we were a little surprised when it became a placement issue, because everything that's been told to us. Granted, I'm not blaming anybody. It is what it is. So we were a little bit surprised that the issue was where it was located, because we had already built everything else, and that was kind of the last thing to build. So we thought when we were submitting a permit, we were just submitting it for electrical or something of the sort. I didn't know it was about the location.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Brink.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Maxwell. Just have a question about, pool house, gazebo. The structure itself, is it like a place to store things, or is it more just open?
Yeah, it's more to be open. It's mostly just a bug-free zone, where we can play games and cards after it gets dark and really buggy, and then also provide some amount of shade during the day, just because there's a lot of direct sunlight. So
Yeah.
it's nice if we can sit in the shade and keep an eye on the kids. It's kind
And
of
the
goal.
plan is to have, it's going to be screens
Yeah.
and some plastic so that we can use it for 8 months instead
Yeah.
of just the Minnesota summer. So it's not a storage shed. It's, we're going to play games with our kids and our neighbors and
Yeah, that's
get
that's
shade
cool.
and get free,
And I think the only-
bug-free space,
Yeah,
because
the only
purgatory
difference
is
that
buggy.
the reason we call it a gazebo and not a pool house is because when I think of a pool house, I think of it has a bathroom and it has other
Yeah.
amenities. This is just, maybe it has a ceiling fan in it because there's electric out there, but it's just, I mean, we're trying to kind of recreate our cabin experience from when we grew up with going up to my grandpa's cabin and just play cribbage out there basically.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Henry.
Thanks, Chair. So it sounds like you worked with the city and they proposed an alternate location that would be in this picture north of the pool. Was that correct?
I don't
No,
think we've had anything proposed yet.
no.
Okay. Yeah, I shouldn't say proposed, but in the write-up, the city said that it didn't present a practical difficulty and that there were places within in the buildable area that could be free of any variances that would be required.
We didn't have a discussion about that. So I don't know what they were thinking. when
Yeah,
they-
this is a question for staff. Could you answer that, Ms.?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, I can answer that. So there wasn't a proposed location that was discussed between staff nor the applicant. It was more so that if a location was proposed outside of the required setbacks and we reviewed it at that time, we could provide a different outcome rather than what is existing here. But we had discussed like, okay, if this is the opposite or if this was, the alternate location, then that would work. That wasn't discussed.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And I don't want to speculate too much on here. We're supposed to look at the application at hand, but if you had to build it on the backside, you said that one of the hardships would be that you have to negotiate that steep slope that's going back to the north.
That's right. I mean, we've looked at it. The problem that we really run into is the decking for the pool is already constructed, and so we would have to tear that out, which
And tear out the boulder wall.
and tear out the boulder wall, and I mean, we basically budgeted for this in a certain way, and we built everything except for this piece of it, which also closes the fence, and so I don't think we would be able to. And it would just require a lot of waste, and I think if that were the decision, we probably just wouldn't build something, because it would be very wasteful.
And the grade has always been there. We had to put the boulder wall in to hold up what was there. We've always had a very steep sloping yard. And so we didn't create a steep slope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right,
Thank you,
thanks. We
everybody.
may bring you up after the public hearing, but
Sure, and if you have any specific questions, we do have our architect here and also the landscape designer. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing for this item. If you wish to speak, come forward, give your name and your address for the record. Keep your comments brief, direct them to me, and then I can get them answered after the public hearing.
Hi, my name's Allison Bang. I'm a neighbor to the Phillips. I'm at 5525 Nantucket Road. I'm at the top of the cul-de-sac, or top of the street. My family is somewhere out there running around. My kids play with their kids, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to read my thoughts because I'm a little nervous. So yep, from what I understand, their proposal is very thoughtful and aligns with the character of our neighborhood and does reflect a genuine effort to make improvements while respecting the surrounding properties. I have had a chance to learn more about their plans, and I appreciate that they've taken the time to involve us as neighbors and as friends. I do appreciate that they've taken the time to involve us and to be transparent throughout the whole entire process. This isn't something that has come about in the last week or 2 weeks. This has been like a year plus. So we feel their pain, in other words. In my opinion, though, this variance won't negatively impact our property values, our traffic, or overall quality of life in the area. In fact, it may really enhance it, given all of the kids in the area and how we all gather down at the Phillips house. I do see it as a reasonable request that supports both our homeowners' needs and the integrity of our neighborhood as a whole. And so I deeply hope you guys consider the proposal and to approve the variance. So thank you.
Thank you. Who else wants to speak on this item? All right, I don't see any more movement. So at this point, I will close the public hearing. and I will bring it back to the commission for any further questions or comments. Who wants to start? Commissioner Hanson.
Maybe just a question for staff, probably just wording choice, but do we know if the slope to the north of the pool, if I have my directions right, is a steep slope by definition?
I do not off the top of my head. Susan might be able to answer it a little better than I can.
Chair and Commissioner Hanson, give us a minute. We can do a quick
Yes.
look.
Take your
As
time.
you know, there's visually steep, and then there's what we
Right.
define as steep. I don't know that.
Yep, I'm with you.
Yep.
Take your time.
But we will take a look.
Yeah.
Commissioner Minion.
Question for the city. My mind keeps going to the overhead plan view, talking about the setbacks, where it talks about the proposed 24 feet 5 inches. It's going to the property line for that measurement, but do we know what the number is for the closest point of the gazebo pool shed to the actual curb line, the actual affected area that snow will be going to, garbage cans will be going to, visibility closer to the road? Is there a number that you can throw us out?
Yep, Commissioner Minion, it's about 12 feet from the proposed edge of the gazebo or pool house to the back of the curb.
Thank you.
I'm going to hop in just for one moment here. There was a question about steep slopes. I ran a very quick calculation. It does not meet that threshold. It's around 16% and 20% is what the steep slope requirement is.
Thank you, Mr. Ingvelson. Commissioner Minion.
Yeah,
Brink,
just a
Commissioner Brink.
Thank you. Just to follow up to Commissioner Minion's question there, maybe this is a question for the applicant, but there is a boulder retaining wall right there. I mean, does the construction of this gazebo require reshifting that, pushing it closer to the curb, or is it all intended to be built behind the boulder wall?
Probably just third here, sorry.
So yeah, there is a retaining wall that's built up on that side of the, so that's 2 tiers, they're kind of eyebrow walls, and then it's a flat space on top, and so then so it would be built just on the flat area that was sort of originally designed to hold that. The other question on the snow removal, generally I don't think it would affect snow removal because it already has that boulder wall, so it's much elevated and setback, and generally the snow ends up kind of towards the end of the cul-de-sac and like outside of our property line generally, because part of our property line, there's a temporary easement for the cul-de-sac, I think, on our property line, and they've never pushed snow over there in the 7 years we've been here.
We know they push it to the end of the road because the kids build forts there.
Yeah,
They build
so
forts there every winter.
Fort there, yeah.
So no change to the boulder wall that's there.
it would just-
It would just be placed on top.
And that's, speaking to that whole area is flat and ready to go because we'd always designed it with that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
There's it right here.
Who else? Commissioner Waterman.
I'll go. I don't have any questions. I think I'll move on to comments. Thank you so much for coming tonight and participating in this and your investment in your home and in Minnetonka. It's always funny when we look at these variance requests. I tend to have not a lot of difficulty when there's variance requests that are pretty deep. Not just a couple feet, but this goes pretty far into it, such that. Ordinarily, I really like to not set new precedents, and I think that the standards that we have in the ordinances are pretty wise for keeping separation. So I was coming into this thinking, no, this is, it's I'll probably agree with the city to deny. But in this meeting and just really hearing your presentation, but especially seeing the neighbor comments and hearing the neighbor comments, which I find exceptional for a variance of this size, that really, I think, is the purpose of these meetings, and it makes me want to try to find a way to disagree with the city and approve the variance. It's challenging because I do think that the cul-de-sac presents a pretty unique opportunity, and the Purgatory Park on the west presents a unique opportunity. Maybe it's not a practical difficulty, but I don't think that it's an unreasonable request. As I look at this, as we see where that cul-de-sac is, I could see how you could think of this as the backyard rather than the front yard. In terms of the intent of the ordinance is about keeping, ensure consistent building lines within a neighborhood. And I think that maybe this cul-de-sac in the park, because there won't be anything else built there and you're at the end of the cul-de-sac, maybe that is kind of what keeps it reasonable, and it keeps it consistent. And of course, I mean, the neighborhood character, we've heard a lot about that in terms of, it sounds like it's a great meeting place for the for the neighborhood. And so with those packaged together, it sounds like we have a little bit of an uphill battle, because we need to, if we disagree, we need to say why. It's tough. Maybe as we talk about, if anyone else agrees, there might be some other reasons to approve, but that's where I'm leaning on this one.
Thanks, Commissioner Waterman. Who's next? Commissioner Henry.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with Commissioner Waterman, where I really enjoy the process of coming in for these meetings. We can read the packets, we can make a preliminary decision based on the information at hand, but then coming in, we hear the personal side of it. So the role of us as commissioners is to weigh all things. We take the city's input, we take the citizens' input, we give it our best shot, and we do what we think is best for the community. As the chair reads in every planning commission meeting, we have to codify a balance between individual rights and community responsibilities, and to that we are all beholden. And it's difficult, and the reason why this is on the non-consent agenda item is because we do have to make a decision on this one. And I look at it, it's almost like we have to compare the quantitative and the qualitative. As the city ordinance says, the city may approve a variance only if the application meets all of the variance standards. And subsequently, the application must be denied if any standards aren't met. So we have to look at the three of the points that Riley brought up. And the first one, the intent of the ordinance, the city stated that it wasn't consistent with that because of inconsistent building lines and separation between roadways and structures. That's something where, as Commissioner Waterman said, there's a little bit of area for debate. Is it consistent? Is it not consistent? There is some room, I think, because it is on a cul-de-sac and it does butt up to the park. Like you mentioned, you use this as more of a backyard than a front yard. So that one, I can see the city's point of view. I can see the applicant's point of view too. So really, most of these, when they come across the commission, I think we have pretty things set in mind. Like you said, Commissioner Waterman, if it's within a couple of feet, maybe there's some room, but this is, 10 feet? And that's significant. So can we justify it enough in this case? I'm not sure if we can, but I really trust in the city's opinion, but I also trust in the process. We as commissioners, we come here and we give our comments. So short answer is I don't know exactly how I'm going to vote on this one. I like to hear more of what the commissioners say. And it's not that common where I just lay it out to say I'm almost 50-50 on this one, but it's pretty much that way. The second one, if it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, the city said maybe because it enhances the neighborhood. I look at absolutely it does enhance the neighborhood. You talked about the character of the neighborhood. I'm all for creating community, and I love that you guys wanted to put a front porch on your house because I'd like to invite people into my home as well. And so I really applaud that one. The cul-de-sac as a gathering space, I think, is a really good idea, and that the gazebo between the cul-de-sac and the house where one responsible adult can monitor both areas, I think from a safety of the children playing there, that's a really good idea too. These may be quantitative, but in my mind, they're really critical in answering this question. So to me, I think that can be answered. And the third, of a practical difficulty and unique circumstance, the city says no. That's a little bit hard to wrestle with because I look at, you could put one of these up on the north sides, but after talking with the applicant, they probably wouldn't because there is maybe not an inherent practical difficulty, but because of the way that the structure is built out with the deck and with the grade, the slope, maybe far away from the cul-de-sac, it sounds like they wouldn't do it. I think it's important as having a pool with children to have a nice place so they can cool off, but that may be beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. Something that wasn't brought up that I think is important to bring up is something that is in alignment with in the ordinance in the first place. We have a front yard setback for a reason, and one of the reasons is public safety. As everybody probably is aware, what happened at the Park Tavern in St. Louis Park was a tragedy, and 2 people lost their lives. The purpose or the reason, one of the reasons was because you had a very grossly irresponsible driver in close proximity to people who were, in this case, they were dining. So when somebody asked the question of how far is the separation between the edge of the building and the curb, it's 12 feet. And that's one of the things that gives me pause, because I would hate to see it. It'd be a horrible tragedy, but I could see an irresponsible driver texting, something else could happen. 12 feet is a very short distance to cover between the road and where children are lying down, possibly sleeping. So from a public safety point of view, that's what really causes me pause, and I hasten to contribute to that. I do not want to have anybody get hurt. So that's where I'm sitting on this one. And again, I can't say definitively if I'm going to vote for or against it, but I needed to make sure that all the commissioners hear these concerns and some of my justification for this. So I welcome everybody else's comments. I'm going to listen intently. I'm going to hear what you have to say, and I'll make the best decision that's best for everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Henry. Who's next? Commissioner Minion.
I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. I'd like to thank your neighbors for standing up for you. It's really nice to see, and it is always good to hear the input from the neighborhood and the support from the neighborhood. I agree with Mr. Henry so much. The 12 foot is a real stumbling block for me. If it was just a few feet or something that was just a little bit, I could see maybe going for it, but the 12 foot is a problem. Your home is beautiful. I had a chance to drive it. You've done an excellent job of making it nice. The other thing that kind of stands in my mind is when we make these decisions is that you're the one that's before us today, but sooner or later you're probably going to sell. Sooner or later your neighbors are going to sell, and the neighborhood will change over. That physical building will still be there, and I really appreciate the codes and the variances that our city has set up. So I'll be voting to side with the city on this one and denying it. But I appreciate all you've done. It's a beautiful, beautiful property, and I encourage you to continue to work with the city. We are so blessed. I've worked with them on other things before I sat here, and so encouraged and so blessed to be able to work with the people I've worked with. I know you'll find a great solution working with them. I wish you well.
Thank you, Commissioner Minion. Anyone else? Commissioner Brink.
Yeah, I echo the comments of Commissioners Henry and Minion and Waterman as well. This is a tough one. I could go either way on this too, but I also appreciate the concerns about public safety, and this is here for the long run, the long term. I'm also a little more, I was going to ask if that alternative site could be investigated just a little more. It doesn't look like it was actually, maybe by the applicant it was, but not really with the staff. I think what I'm getting back to here is where the variance can be approved, but it has to meet all of the variance standards, and it clearly doesn't, and that's where I'm uncomfortable with this. But if this does get denied tonight, I would like to see if that alternative location could be looked at a little bit closer. But I thank you so much for coming and presenting here.
Commissioner, do you have anything to say?
Well, I think I'd lean into yes here tonight, and I hear Commissioner Henry. That's a pretty thoughtful comment about the safety, and then I think about what I heard from the applicant, at least tonight, is like they want to be there to watch their kids, and I'm totally hearing the idea that, hey, maybe this spot on the north side actually fits in. Who knows if it fits in right now, but it doesn't seem like that's going to help watch the kids in this instance, and that's maybe a 20-year period in time versus a 50-year period in time. I also think that for me, like the way the cul-de-sac and the driveways all come together here is unique. Like their driveway, like we've all mentioned, has nothing to do with the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac has essentially become a weird version of a playground that doesn't actually have a playground in it. And so I kind of think about Minnetonka has this little pocket neighborhoods throughout, and this is a circumstance that's going to impact 3 homes. And so when we find an opportunity to build a deep rooted community amongst 3 homes, that can spread pretty quickly. And so here we have a group of neighbors that unanimously is supporting this. I'm trusting those neighbors that they'll do the right thing and be safe and continue to foster that community, and it'll become a part of the culture. I also think that when we just follow these uniform, arbitrary 35-foot setbacks or 25-foot setbacks, we end up with kind of, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, but we end up with a lot of stuff that looks alike, and we kind of lose the uniqueness that people drive by and say, oh, that's kind of quirky. I definitely wouldn't want that, but it's cool. And so that's just where I'm headed. I think I totally get where the city's at. I just think I would support the property owner's right to develop their property in this instance, and I want them to do that. So.
Does anybody else have any follow-up comments or follow-up questions? Commissioner Waterman.
Thanks, Chair. And I'll be done. Just the one observation, Commissioner Henry. That was the observation point is really good. It seems like they have the retaining wall right there, so that might also help. I mean, that's already existing. I'm just looking at it in the pictures. So that might help blunt some of that.
That was my thought too, with the safety concern that you made. There's that retaining wall there and the elevation difference, so it's unlikely that a car is going to jump the curb and run over a kid sleeping in the gazebo. So from my perspective, it's maybe 12 horizontal feet, but there's also vertical feet sort of in this calculation. Does anybody else have comments? I don't know that we're ready to take a motion to either approve or deny. Does anybody feel strongly one way or the other on the commission here?
So I'm just reading. I do feel strongly like I would like to get this approved. I'm just looking at our options just on the fly here. It sounds like, speaking from my perspective, like if there were a vote to concur with staff and deny the variance, we need a simple majority. If we disagree and we would want to make a motion approving the variance request, we need, I was reading it a moment ago, I think we need 5 of us? 4? Okay, it's just a majority. We need 5. We need 5. Okay. So then some of that, I don't know if that informs, 'cause it sounds like we have 2 that would be against, but so I don't know if that really goes anywhere, but if there were a motion to, maybe for the staff, if there were a motion that I could propose, what would I say, like disagreeing with the staff's recommendation and proposing a variance approving the request? Do I then need to list specific items, or has that sort of already been encapsulated in our commentary?
Chair Maxwell and Commissioner Waterman, you could make a motion with city staff's recommendation and just vote no on that, but that doesn't get you to an approval. An option would be to recommend or not recommend, to approve the variance. Would you like me to comment on what I heard?
Please help me.
You say? Yeah. What I heard from commissioners who may support this is that the proposal is reasonable and would not impact neighborhood character given the location at the end of a cul-de-sac and adjacent to Purgatory Park, and that the situation of the house and existing improvements relative to front property line, including the location of the existing driveway, present a unique circumstance.
Sounds really good. Really appreciate that. Why don't I'll stop talking and kind of open it up to the rest of the commission.
Commissioner Hanson, did you have something to add?
You're smarter than me, so you go first.
I think at this point, it might be worth pulling up that in sort of what are the conditions required for approval of a variance, and then if you could again just summarize what you've heard so far in our comments, whether or not we have any grounds to stand on once we consider them all together, because each of us I think has spoken to one or another of them, and then we can go from there. Did you have anything to add before we do that?
Other than, I think, by my understanding, this is a final action. And so just to make it clear, I think if the homeowner hasn't heard it, they can appeal this decision, but we'll help with that too. So
That's correct.
If I may, Ms. Rooney, did we have a slide with the criterion, the state statute criterion? I know we do for the next presentation, but I'll list those off. So there are 3 criterion. First is the intent of the ordinance, which again, I heard that this meets the intent given the location at the end of the cul-de-sac and adjacent to Purgatory Park, that there's not an existing building line that we need to be concerned about. So the first is the intent. The second is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which as Ms. Rooney outlined, and it was in your report, this is kind of a value add to the neighborhood. So those are the first 2 criteria. The third criteria is practical difficulties, which has those 3 subsets: reasonableness, neighborhood character, and unique circumstance. So I think that these 2 points that I read before that I can, and I can read them again, get to all of those 5 criteria. Now I just want to read a comment from one of we're kind of emailing each other to make sure that we're encapsulating what you're saying. If you would like to first take a vote to deny the request and see if you might be able to see what kind of votes you have, if that makes sense. I don't mean to muddy the waters.
No, I like that suggestion to first take a motion to agree with the staff to deny it, and then if that fails, then to put forth a motion to approve it. So I think we're ready. Anybody have further comments before we go forward with that path? All right. Would anybody like to make a motion to adopt the resolution denying the front yard setback variance for a pool house at 5501 Nantucket Place?
I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Minion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Brink. Staff, please poll the commission.
And so just to clarify, a yes vote on this means yes to deny the variance. Okay. Minion.
Yes.
Waterman.
No.
Brink.
Yes.
Hanson.
no.
Henry.
No.
Maxwell.
No.
Okay.
So that I heard 4 noes, 2 yeses, so we don't have enough votes to have that pass. That resolution fails. If we are to go forward with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we don't have enough either to have a resolution that passes potentially. Should we just go forward with making that motion and see what the result is after everybody has
Chair, my recommendation is that you go forward with that motion. That also then gets it on the public record. So if the applicant chooses to appeal to the city council, they have that on the public record.
And then we'll get there once we get there. Well, do I have a motion to adopt a resolution approving the front yard setback variance for a pool house at 5501 Nantucket Place?
I will make that motion.
Motion, Hanson.
I'll second.
Second, Waterman. Staff, please poll the commission.
Minion.
No.
Waterman.
Yes.
Brink.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Maxwell.
Yes. That is 5 votes. The motion carries. And that is a final decision by the Planning Commission subject to appeal. All right. Good luck with your project. Okay, moving on to the next item. Next item on our agenda is 8C, a preliminary plat with variances for Corma Knoll, a two-lot subdivision at 14705 Glendale Road. Staff, please make your report.
Thank you, Chair. So our next request, just to give you some bearings on where we're located, here is Eden Prairie Road and Glendale Road. The property's at that corner. Some other easier, maybe bigger things that people maybe know about is Gatewood Elementary School, and then also Glen Lake Golf Course is just over here to the east. And then in between, it's obviously in between Highway 60, County Road 62, and then Excelsior Boulevard to the north. Here's a look at the existing site. It is just under an acre at 0.99 acres. It is zoned R1 and guided low density. The topography of the site is relatively flat as you look at it. This area right here on your screen is the highest point, and then there are two depressions, one here on the north and one on the south. Looking at drainage, it generally drains to those locations, but also off the site. But looking at topography, there's a total of 10 feet of elevation change over the course of the entire site. And the steepest area here is just a little bit over 14% grade change. So it might look rather steep because these are 1 foot contours. We're more used to seeing 2 foot contours, but it is not as steep as this probably appears compared to our usual plans that we see. Also, looking at this existing site, it does have 3 right-of-way frontages. 2 of those are local city streets, Chastec Way and then Glendale Road. And then it also has a county road, County Road 4, Eden Prairie Road, over there to the east. One other thing I wanted to add here is the site has most of its trees located around the outside of the property. There are a few located here in the middle, but there are a few on there. And looking at the trees, there are 45 regulated trees, 37 high priority, and 8 significant. Also on this site, there is an existing building. There's a home there currently, and then also a 240 square foot shed here just on the south side. Here's a look at that existing home. It is a rather old one, originally built in 1908 per our records, and had a major remodel though in 1970. It's 2 stories. The first and second level are about 1,600 square feet. The lower level is a little under 1,000. Here's a look at what the applicant is proposing tonight. So as said earlier, it's a request for a preliminary plat with variances. The proposed homes would be accessed off of Glendale Road, and the grading for the site is actually pretty minimal compared to some other ones we have. They've located the homes in the center of the site where it is fairly flat and where the existing home is located. So as far as with grading for the site, it's pretty small compared to what we might see in different projects. Also, they have proposed 2 stormwater locations on the site, one in the northwest and one in the southeast. Water would drain to those areas, obviously, as you can see through the arrows on the screen. They're also, for tree removal, that was in the staff report, they are going right up to the maximum for high priority. 12 is the max that's allowed. They're proposing 12 per our staff review for high priority, and then 1 significant tree would be removed as part of the project. This is our table that we always look at whenever we have a subdivision, so we go through it and look through them every single time. This application, the request actually meets a lot of those different standards that we have. Lot widths, it meets pretty easily. Lot depth, it meets also pretty easily, and then there's quite a bit of buildable area on this property. And meets the buildable area dimension requirements. The one area that it does not meet is the lot area requirement of 22,000 square feet. We have 2 lots that are 340-ish square feet short on both of those, so that is where the variance comes into play. So we talked a lot about variances. I have this standard up. It is a little bit different than the other one because it's from our subdivision section, so we did not scroll to it because it's a little different. So we can show you that in good conscience. But I'll talk a little bit through it too. I know my colleague, Ms. Rooney, talked a little bit about this, but I'll just go through it again quickly. First off, as we talked about before, I think the important thing I highlighted here is that a variance may be granted, but is not mandated when the applicant meets the burden proving that. So all these 3 standards need to be met, and then at that point, the commission may approve a variance. It is not required or, again, mandated. So we have other requests that come through, like conditional use permits, where there's a legal requirement to approve those, or site and building plans, where if those standards are met, but variances are a little different, we are not required to, even if the standards are met. It's then available, though, to do it. It's eligible for it. Looking at the standards, there's three. It's just like the last one. There's sort of three main ones, like we talked about the last one. One is that it's a reasonable request. That's going to looking at functional and aesthetic justifications for the request, and that's also going to improve the neighborhood and property. Number two, unique circumstance. Is there a unique circumstance to the property, and not solely based on landowners' convenience or economic considerations? And then C, neighborhood character, which would not adversely affect or alter the essential character of the neighborhood, which we talked quite a bit about in our last one, so we're back on that one. And that is really the crux of this one. That's where staff has looked at this and had probably the most difficult one. I think there might be areas of things there might be merit available for the reasonable and unique circumstances, but in staff's review and staff's opinion, it does not meet the neighborhood character requirement. So we talk about neighborhood character, and those who've seen a lot of my presentations, I like maps and I like numbers and I like percentages. So I looked at multiple different definitions of neighborhood, because I think, again, everyone has sort of a little bit of a different definition. So this first one is just looking at all the properties that are either directly adjacent or kitty corner to it. The subject property has this teal outline, and then ones that are in that orangish color are conforming lots, the ones that meet city code that are 22,000 square feet. As you can see, there's several that are rather large too, but all those ones are conforming, and there are only two directly adjacent or kitty corner to the property that are non-conforming. So a little bit over 70% of them conform to the requirements. Going out a little bit farther, 400 square feet is our mailing notice requirement. So these are people who legally have to be mailed a notice whenever a project comes through. That percentage goes a bit lower. It's at around up 57% of them are conforming lots, and 43% are non-conforming. So again, it gets a little bit closer to it, but still there's not a majority of properties that are non-conforming. And then the last one, 400 feet and 1,000 feet on adjacent road. That's another standard we have within our code that we use sometimes to look at neighborhood. And looking at that, 58% of the properties are conforming, while 42% are not conforming. And that's sort of been a standard that staff has looked at usually as a tipping point. Is there more than half of the neighborhood that's non-conforming when we look at this neighborhood character? And with this one, in all those different areas, it was never under 50% that were conforming. There was always under that for the non-conforming amount. So with that, staff is recommending that the City Council approve the resolution denying the request for the preliminary plat and variances. The findings are that the proposed variance would not be consistent with the neighborhood character, that's standard C, as the majority of the residential lots in the area are over 22,000 square feet. For our vote tonight, we'll keep it a little bit simpler than our last one. We just need a majority vote of the Planning Commission for a recommendation for approval or denial. And with that vote, again, it's just a flat majority, and this is a recommendation to the City Council. This is not a final decision. If Ms. Thomas could assist me, we did have something that we received from the applicant right before this meeting that we weren't able to get into the change memo, but was something that they wanted to share as part of it. And there were some things within the change memo too. There were some notices, there were some comments from neighbors, and then also from the applicant too. So I hope everyone had an opportunity to take a look at those beforehand. But with that, I turn the mic back over to the chair and commission for additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ingvaldson. Is this going to be added to the minutes for the meeting, or is there a way the public will be able to see the content in this handout?
Yes, Chair Maxwell, we will add that as an attachment to the report that goes to the City Council.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody from the commission have questions for staff? Commissioner Brink.
Yes, thank you. I have a question. I think further on down in your report, it talked about right-of-way dedication for both the city and the county, and I'm wondering how that affects the numbers in the table that you presented, particularly the lot areas.
Thank you so much for reading the report closely. Yes, there was, and that's a very interesting change to this that we don't run into too often. The basis of the variance request is occurring regardless of that dedication. If there was no dedication of right-of-way, the applicant would still need a variance, so that's an important part to know. There might be a differing opinion if this was caused by government entities acquiring right-of-way, but I have a slide here to talk about that. Here's a look at the preliminary plat as if this request was approved. There'd be 2 areas of right-of-way that would be acquired that would reduce the lot size. There'd be one off of Eden Prairie Road that the county has made a request. There's an attachment with a letter from the county talking about their request for additional right-of-way. It's 7 feet, if I'm not mistaken. And then over on the other side, Chastec Way, the city of Minnetonka actually would also make a request for additional right-of-way, 10 feet. Chastec Way is a narrow street as it is, and a narrow right-of-way, so this would be getting us closer to that conforming amount for future projects. Also, I showed the buildable area on here, and I did do another chart because, again, I like my numbers and I like my charts. So on here, the request, even with these dedications, so if the city council approved this request, the request would fairly easily meet all of the standards I talked about before, lot width, lot depth, buildable area, but that what would happen is the variance would be greater than what's currently being requested. So it'd be the lots go down to around a little bit over 20,000 square feet instead of the 21.
Other questions for staff? Commissioner Minion.
Will you talk a little bit about the likelihood of those additional reductions of the lot size? It's something you talked about. It was the county had written a very nice letter. What do you think? Will the city and county both be looking for more land or more space for these lots?
Commissioner Minion and Chair. So platting is an interesting point where that compared to a lot of other requests where the city can make this requirement as part of a condition of approval requiring additional right-of-way. So we've done that with multiple projects. If you remember back Tonka Flats we just had a few weeks ago, there was a tiny bit of city requested right-of-way and also some from the county too. So this would be similar to that, where the city would put that as a condition of approval requiring it, and I would say it isn't a percentage chance, it'd be a 100% chance. This is what the city and then the county would put in there as a condition of approval if this was approved.
Commissioner Henry.
Thanks, Chair. In the write-up, the applicants talked about, and I think the city mentioned it too, about I think it was mostly the applicants, about the possibility of acquiring enough land to make sure that both of the lots were 22,000 square feet. But then this may be more of a question for the applicant too versus the city. And I see that heads are nodding, so I probably should ask them about that. I know that one cannot be compelled to sell to a neighbor if you need that. So just from the city's perspective, was there any discussion about that and what came of it, or is this a question better asked to the applicant?
Your gut was right, Commissioner Henry. I would leave that to the applicant, so I will have you ask them that question when they're up to chat.
Maybe a hypothetical then. So if the applicant was able to negotiate a deal with the neighbor to acquire as much land as necessary to have at least 20,000 square feet per lot, then would this not require a variance?
Commissioner Henry, it still would require a variance even if that additional area was required. I would say it'd be looked at a little bit differently because at that point the city's request for additional right-of-way would be creating the variance. So I have some knowledge that the applicant can share a bit more about that conversation, but that was brought up where, again, if there's a little bit of land purchase there and then the two dedication of right-of-ways created the need for the variance, that would probably be a different conversation and a different review.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, at this point, I will invite the applicant forward if you'd like to make any comments or additions to the staff presentation. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Through this process, we've had tons of conversation. He dreads my emails and my phone calls every single day. But with that said, thank you for all your help going through this process. So, all right. So as we worked through the process, we had the three legal standards that we had to meet. Reasonable use, I think we have that one relatively set. We would build houses that meet the neighborhood, that relatively fit in with the neighborhood. Unique condition, that right of way is where we started to, we went down back and forth on many different conversations, but essentially going to your question about acquiring land, we started there, and while going to that point, we could have, if we had discussed with the neighbors, adding enough square footage to get above that 1 acre line. When we, in parallel with that happening, our survey company actually contacted the county. They notified me of the land the county would be taking back and the land that the city would be taking back likely. So that kind of killed that conversation of we're going to need a variance regardless, because even though we could make it over an acre for a period of time, it would only be for that quick period of time, and then through this process we'd lose it. So that was kind of how that came to be. Trying to skip through the things that Drew covered here. So I think, Drew, can you happen to share the graphic that I shared today? So the one thing that we kind of disagreed on as we went through the process, and I say that in jest and in fun, is how we calculate what the neighborhood is. And while Eden Prairie Road and further north and south may be partially considered the neighborhood, I would consider the neighborhood the Chastec Way Road and then the Glendale Road back and forth. Those neighborhoods, or those properties in this area are clearly smaller. So the way that I calculated them, too many notes here. 19 of those homes out of the 30 there are actually non-conforming at this point. So 2 of them are, for some reason, withheld from calculation. One is, I believe, city-owned, and one was a nonprofit, which I don't know why that would make it not part of the neighborhood, but maybe the city-owned it could be considered a park or something like that in the future. So that's how I came to my calculations that are in there. And then if you go, obviously our calculation of 400 feet with my rudimentary tools didn't quite meet his exact, we're very close there. So it's about 50% of the neighborhood is conforming, 50% isn't, depending on where you're measuring from and what tool you're using. So, yeah, let's see here. So the other thing that I think is kind of significant is that as you walk down Glendale Road, if we were to be approved, our properties would be 155 feet of frontage and 165 respectively. If you go through the whole neighborhood there, that's actually larger than 90% of the rest of the properties. So from the street, that 370 square feet of difference or shortage is probably not noticeable. So that's kind of my thought process there. With all that said, the one other comment, and I know this is not legally binding in any way, shape, or form, but one conversation we had, Susan mentioned it at one point, Drew mentioned it, is that the 2040 plan is leaning towards a little bit more dense properties, and that they're working through adjusting or potentially adjusting the minimum lot size throughout the next year. So theoretically, next year, this might not even be a conversation. So with that said, I went through the 2040 plan, and that's the notes that I shared today. I spent that time this morning doing some research and pulled out all of those notes. So it's really just comments along the lines of using underutilized land and underdeveloped land and starting to utilize it. So that's kind of the thought process there. Let's see here. So yeah, I guess the other thing to state is that the 2040 comprehensive plan prioritizes infill, flexibility of lot size, unlocking underused parcels for smart development. In my mind, this project meets every one of those goals using high quality design, preserving natural resources, providing appropriately scaled homes on lots that would not be larger than the rest of the neighborhood, or than the majority of the neighborhood. I guess with that, is there any questions?
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson.
Sorry, I think I missed this at the start. Can I get your name?
Oh,
It's all good. I think I missed it.
no, Jesse Went, 5328 Spring Lane.
Thanks.
Minnetonka resident for 15 years.
Any other questions for the applicant? It looks like not at this time. We may bring you up later after the public hearing for more
thank you.
questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thanks, Drew.
All right, at this point, I will open the public hearing. Again, if you'd like to make comments, please come forward, state your name and your address for the record. Try not to repeat points already spoken. Keep your comments brief. Direct your questions, comments to me, and then after the public hearing closes, we'll either bring back up the applicant or ask staff all the questions that we hear during this public hearing. I see some discussion. Okay, someone's moving.
Hi, my name is Phil Bomia. I'm at 5809 Chastec Way. I am the neighbor to the south. So I have the .93 right on the south of it. I was approached by the developers here, the builders, to sell a portion of the northeast part of our land, right by our driveway. Can't really see it, but it's northeast, right on the northeast section of our land there. There was discussion about it. It came down to whether it would affect me or not, whether it would affect the usability of my lot, the usability of what I have envisioned for my lot as well. I have a driveway that kind of goes from Eden Prairie Road through to Chastec, and it runs the whole length of that. And on that northeast corner, there is a small shed, and my plan was at some point to build some kind of a shop or something there. The conversations that I've had with Mr. Jesse Went on his purchasing it, and I understand now that he may still need a variance thereafter, so this might be a moot point, but currently that spot is where I push all my snow to, push all my leaves to. It is what I'm using it for. But then also when I build this new shop on that northeast corner, if that lot were to be, if that 700 square feet, as small as that seems, if I was to do that, that would then kick in some of these setbacks that he is now dealing with. So the conversation of whether or not I wanted or was willing to sell that land, I am, for the right price, right? So, and so the numbers may or may not have made sense to him, but at the same time, the land that he was wanting to buy does affect me long term. Going forward as well, if we have two, $1.5 million homes that are built, or whatever that is, increases my taxes, increases all my neighbors' taxes, and that doesn't just end next year. It goes for the rest of time. And so, this does affect what we're doing. I guess the biggest thing is that I was I am and was willing to sell some land for the correct price, but the price that was offered wasn't even covering, my attorney's fees or anything else. And then what I have to go through, I have to change my mortgage, I have to change my PID, I have to do, there's a lot that more that goes on to it for the number that was talked about. So I don't think that conversation is completely dead. I think it just needs to be rediscussed with him. Is kind of where I'm at. So, how do you think? Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Thank you. Lacey Chamberlain, 4759 Hamilton Road. We used to live on Chastack Way here. And I just wanted to offer my support for the points pointed out and probably hit on number 2 and number 3 a bit more, because I think the beauty of Minnetonka is really the neighborhoods and the breadth of the neighborhood that it has. So wanted to again just offer our support that we think keeping this as a lot is really helping maintain the character of the neighborhood and also the uniqueness of it as well. So feels like the split is really I'm not sure aligns with the criteria outlined as much versus maintaining that character so that the neighborhood can continue to really thrive as a place for children and homes and families with the school right there. So just appreciate you listening.
Thank you. All right, I don't see anybody else moving. This is your last chance. All right, looks like we have no one else who wants to speak, so I will close the public hearing. And I will bring it back to the commission for any questions for the applicant or staff or comments. Who wants to go first? Commissioner Hansen.
I'm lead off. Maybe just a quick question for Drew as I've thought about the kind of the multiple processes for acquiring the land. A little bit out of the scope, but is it, no matter what happens, will the city and the county come looking for more additional right-of-way in this instance? I don't think that matters. I'm just kind of curious right now.
If the application is approved, yes.
Got it. So it's just this one triggering point that opens the door for the city and the county to step in and
yes, Commissioner
be
Hansen.
aggressive.
Commissioner Hansen, Chair, this comes with all plats. Whenever there is a plat, that's an opportunity there's a lot of roads within Minnetonka and throughout the area that have non-conforming roads. I mean, we've seen through this application, we talked about this house being built in 1908. Roads were quite a bit different at that point than they are today. So during these times, that's when legally the city has the right to make that as a condition.
Commissioner Waterman?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to everyone who spoke and to the developer who's looking at this property and looking to invest in Minnetonka, to the neighbors who are providing their feedback in these letters. So I see why the city is following the guidelines and had to recommend denial. And I was chewing on that. There's for the reasons listed in the packet, which I think was pretty clear, and then also just kind of getting some of the clarification about less than 50% of the neighborhood being non-conforming, and of course the point is well taken about where we're headed with some zoning and the comp plan, but I mean the ordinance right now is still the ordinance. That said, I mean there are so few variances here. It's so close. I mean this property just seems like it should qualify for subdivision, and I think that's what these kind of meetings are for, and applying that judgment. It's not just meeting most of the kind of the by the numbers, check the box standards. It's really exceeding a lot of those. We're not running into the tree protection ordinance, which we've been able to subdivide a fair amount of properties, but I'm always concerned about running up against that, and it's not happening here. This would allow for some more roadway access. even though that they're less than 50% of the neighborhood is non-conforming, I mean, still there are a fair amount nearby that are. It's an interesting point about the frontage, like it'll have more than others in the neighborhood. So similar to before, I feel like I rarely disagree with the city, and I can't believe there's two tonight. I disagree. I think that this property could be subdivided, and I would support a variance. And I just don't think it will have a tremendously adverse impact to the neighborhood.
Thanks for going first. Anybody else? Commissioner Hanson.
I would probably piggyback off that. On first read through of this, I would, it's so close that feels like you're within the margin of error or standard deviation, whatever nerdy math you want to use. So, based upon that, I think I supported it. And then, honestly, this is probably a property that needs a little revitalization in my mind. Just how it's sitting today, it could kind of have some life breathed back into it a little bit. So I probably would be willing to support the subdivision tonight.
Who's next? Commissioner Brink.
Just quick question for the applicant. Is the intent for each lot to have its own driveway, or there was some talk in the report about a shared driveway too?
Yeah, so these are proposed dwellings with two separate driveways. And the one thing I'll say is that there's quite a bit of buildable space, especially on the lot to the left, and we can shift it around or turn it as necessary. So I think we're flexible there. This was just, something we can get in front of you to show you what we've got.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Henry.
Yeah, they don't make it easy for the applications that come in front of us. There's a lot to weigh in this one, and the city, as usual, has done a very thoughtful job in quantifying the rationale for their decision. Going back to the three criteria, is it reasonable? The city made the comment that it probably is reasonable, or they said maybe. Is there a unique circumstance? You could say, well, there's just short of the lot size necessary to avoid a variance, although you have the city and the county taking some more lot space too. But then you have the neighborhood character, and the city did a pretty thoughtful job to say why, in their opinion, it wasn't in character with the rest of the neighborhood. If over half are conforming and this one wouldn't be conforming, it's a valid argument. In the language of the variance, if it's appropriate or not, the language states that if it's not solely for the landowner's convenience and solely because of economic conditions. I look at that as a very compelling argument and the crux of this. Can we approve a variance? Yes. Is it in the city's best interest to approve a variance? In my mind, I don't think it is. If we look at the character of the neighborhood, we mentioned about people moved to Minnetonka because of the large lot sizes and a lot of the tree coverage, and solely to develop a land because they can, because we can approve a variance. Does that make it appropriate and the highest use of the property to do so? In my opinion, I don't think it is. A beautiful house could be built on here, almost 1 acre with some of the gentle sloping terrain, and that would be more in line with the character of the city. So I would welcome. Another commissioner mentioned that we should redevelop the property. I think it could be appropriate to do so. Not with 2 lots, but with one, having it blending in nicely with the rest of the neighborhood, I think would be a great use of this property. So I would fully support that. But as it's written, I agree with the city's recommendation that I will not support this.
Commissioner Minion.
No, I'm the one vacillating. I'm really big into when we can take our lots and divide them up and make more homes for our community, and it's really important on many, many levels. But I think the city, it's one thing to look at a piece of paper and to look through and review the paper that we have, but and the numbers that were brought up from the applicant to the city. The discrepancies that they have is how they count them up. But I have to say, when I drove the property and looked at the property at first, I thought it was a great idea to divide it. But when I looked and rethought through what the city had provided about the neighborhood character, they're all larger lots there. This would make a difference in how the community, how the neighborhood drives, how it looks. I'm a bit torn, to be honest. And I'm leaning towards supporting the city's position of denying it. But I don't know. To be honest, I have to say I don't know. I'm leaning towards the city's deal, but there's so many great reasons to support this division as well. Sorry for not having a firm answer for you right now.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Hanson.
I totally hear that, and I totally agree there could be one big house here. In 40 years, if you drive by and there's two houses there, you're not going to know any difference, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm an idiot. You are still smarter than me, but it's a low bar. So I take that longitudinal view and say, like, we go through St. Louis Park and there's all these houses packed in, and we're not St. Louis Park, but this is still going to be a pretty decent sized lot, 22,000 square feet. We're so close. So 40 years from now, I don't know if the next set of residents would recognize that. Again, that's just my opinion.
Commissioner Brink.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a quandary, just like Commissioner Minion there. I could go either way on this, and I think there's very strong arguments in both directions here, and I empathize and respect all of those. So I'm still trying to make up my mind here.
When I looked at this, I was thinking about the 2040 comp plan and where do we want to go as a city, and then considering that we have a effort ongoing to redo zoning code, and part of that effort will likely be to reduce the minimum lot size. I see not just 40 years down the road, you're not going to notice, but in 2 or 3 years, it will likely be possible to do this subdivision without any variances, or with less variance than there is now. So I see it as in 10 years, it's going to be subdivided by somebody. Probably this is speculation, right? But that's sort of what I was thinking, that what the city is looking for in the 2040 comp plan is increasing some density, decreasing lot size where appropriate, where it does not change the character of the neighborhood. And that's really character of the neighborhood. Do you have a comment?
Thank you, Chair. You got my wave down. I should have mentioned this earlier. I heard a few comments from the applicant. I just want to clarify. I don't think this is going to be earth-shattering. One comment that I'll get to, and then I'll get to another one. The first one was the properties that were reviewed in here. I just want to make a note that it was a city-owned property that is currently used for stormwater, a school-owned property that is much larger than 22,000 square feet, a golf property too that's county-owned that wasn't included, and then a church. So those weren't included in that calculation because of the fact that those are not looked to have single-family homes in the future. But then a bigger clarification I want to first make. The applicant submitted some items that are talking about the comprehensive plan. And if we are talking about a variance from the zoning section, which is chapter 3, we would say it has to be consistent with the land use comprehensive plan. Because this is a variance from the subdivision section, the land use section doesn't apply. So these are the sections that are included in here. It's a little different than the usual variances we have. One other thing I will note is that we are currently talking about today's city code, not any hypothetical future ones. I know that we talk, and Ms. Thomas can add on to this because she's been leading that process. I would be cautious to talk about what future zoning requirements might be, because that is something that is currently not in place. And tonight we are looking at our current zoning code and looking at how that currently sits. None of us can say exactly what that future zoning code will be, but we need to look at the one that's currently in front of us. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Chair, I would just add on to that for anyone who may be viewing. Again, we're at the beginning of our zoning ordinance update. We're looking at all things zoning, including lot size. We don't know where all of this will end. It may end in something different, but I just want to caution everyone about thinking or knowing that we're going to be at a different area in a year and a half when we get through all of that. We don't know where we're going to end up. We're at the very beginning. Thanks.
Yes, acknowledged. Consider me chastised. But my point was 2040 comp plan is pushing towards infill of lots where we can and potentially allowing flexibility to have smaller lot size as long as it doesn't change the character of the neighborhood. I could go either way on this one, really. I feel like when you're driving by on the street, really I'd see the width at the right-of-way makes more of an impact, and the FAR, the floor area ratio, makes more of an impact in my mind when I'm driving by than the pure square footage of a lot. You could have a deep lot, but from the street it might not look any different. And so in my mind, the fact that this meets and aligns with most of the properties in the area from that perspective, from width at setback, that is a good definition of how this fits in with the rest of the neighborhood were it to be subdivided. Then the other thing I want to talk about with neighborhood character was part of this, that what I've heard in the neighborhood comments is the charm of this. And it's a house that's built in 1908. And I think if you take that down and replace it with something else, that will feel as you're driving by like the character of the neighborhood is changing. Without doing any subdivision, it will feel different when it is, if it is rebuilt. So those are my two comments, I guess, on neighborhood character. If anybody else has any rebuttal, feel free. I can acknowledge that. Commissioner Henry.
Thank you. Not so much of a rebuttal, but in addition to some that which already was mentioned earlier in the meeting, where we mentioned that there is a commission that's looking, or a group that's looking at redoing the zoning plan. And the city mentioned earlier in the meeting that we have a couple of ways for the city or for citizens to provide feedback on that. So we have on Minnetonka Matters on our website, there is a visual survey. So I'd encourage every citizen in Minnetonka to go out there and make their voice heard. The reason why we have a panel looking at the zoning ordinance is because that could be in accordance with the will of the people. And the people need to speak to make their voices heard on this. And there's also that phone survey, so please don't hang up when you hear that there's the phone survey about changing the zoning commission. Your voice matters in this.
Thanks, Mr. Henry. Any other comments? Otherwise, I think I would propose that we do the same thing we did in the last item, where we vote on whether or not to agree with the staff, and then if that doesn't pass, then we go on the next path. All right. If there are no more comments, I will take a motion to recommend that the City Council approve the resolution denying the Formicola preliminary plat and variances at 14705 Glendale Road. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll get us going. I'll make the motion.
Motion Hanson.
I'll second the motion.
Second Henry. Staff, please poll the commission.
Minion?
Yes.
Waterman?
No.
Brink?
No.
Hanson?
No.
Henry?
Yes.
Maxwell?
No. That motion fails. So at this point, should we make a motion to approve it, or should we just let the council take this, that the motion to deny failed and they can do what they want with it?
Chair Maxwell, if you are ready to make a motion to approve it, recommending approval, I think that would be helpful to the council. Again, this is a variance, so we would need some guidance on the findings. I took some notes again, if you would. I may need a little bit help in the unique circumstance. And again, because this is in the subdivision ordinance, as Mr. Ingvelson noted, the variance standard is a little bit different. There's just 3 prongs instead of 5 prongs. So again, I heard and grouped reasonableness and neighborhood character together, noting that many neighborhoods in the surrounding area do not meet minimum lot size already. And so reasonableness and neighborhood character. Unique circumstance.
Commissioner Waterman.
I hope you don't recoil at this one. I do think the unique circumstance is that it's 0.99 acres. I don't know if that creates, like, I just don't want to open this up to like, oh, every meeting it's like, well, we're only at 0.9 and 0.8, but like, that's just so close. So.
And we can certainly reflect that in your motion, certainly.
I mean, that is my rationale. So.
Commissioner Henry, did you have something to add?
Well, we just need to take this as it's presented to us, but recall that if this does get approved, then city and county will be taking some more land too. So that'll have to be an additional variance with a smaller lot size too. So just what you mentioned will be happening soon.
All right. And then was neighborhood character one that you had notes on as well, Ms. Thomas?
Commissioner Maxwell and commissioners, Chair Maxwell, pardon me, and commissioners, as I did in the last variance, I think, and sometimes staff does also, we group those two together. It's reasonable and would not alter neighborhood character because many properties in the surrounding area already do not meet those minimum standards. So it is acceptable to group two of the three prongs together.
All right, thank you. Would anybody here like to make a motion approving? Go ahead, Commissioner
I just
Waterman.
have one other comment. This
Yep.
is not a bombshell comment. It's just since we're going down this path, this is a minor point. I just want to pull something that Commissioner Brink was saying just about regarding the driveways, in that there would be access, like 2 new driveways off of a road. I think it's relevant just because I'm sensitive to the next almost full acre lot, people looking to subdivide, and it's like, oh, we're trying to jam in, and you've got driveways and shared driveways. I think that's one more reason that this makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted to pull that all the way across, since we're probably proposing a recommendation to approve the variance. And I would make that motion to approve the variance on this.
To recommend
Yeah.
that the city
To
council
thank you.
approve.
Thank you.
All right. Motion Waterman, do I have a second?
I will second.
All right. Second, Hanson. Staff, please poll the commission.
Minion,
No.
Waterman,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Henry,
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
Maxwell.
No. So that also fails. So we'll let the city council do with that as they will. You're welcome, city council. All right, well, that will be heard by the city council on the July 14th meeting.
And Chair Maxwell, and just for the members of the audience, all of the discussion here, your motions, all of that is reflected to the city council. So the city council will see your thoughts both for and against the project.
All right, that brings us to our next item, other business, for which there is none. And then the last item is adjournment. Commissioners, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
Motion Henry,
I'll second.
second Waterman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned. Have a good night.